Arizona, Mr. Franks, to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 3541 as amended, on which the yeas and nays are ordered. The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 3541, a bill to prohibit discrimination against the unborn on the basis of sex or race and for other purposes.
The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill as amended? Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 5-minute vote.
This is Trent Frank's bill from Arizona, debated yesterday. This is the bill that would ban abortions based on the gender of the fetus. It's a 5-minute vote. It came up as a suspension bill. Chad Pergram, who covers Congress for Fox as a producer, tweeted a short while ago, this needs 2/3 vote to pass. He tweets, if all 432 members vote, that's 288. The number will probably be lower. It's a 5-minute vote.
Have all members voted? Does any member wish to change their vote?
Ms. Loretta Sanchez of California. Ms. Loretta Sanchez of California votes no.
On this vote, the yeas are 246, the nays are 168. Two-thirds not being in the affirmative, the rules are not suspended and the bill is not passed.
Floyd, is Kevin, is Yoda?
The House will be in order. Please take your conversations off the floor. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan rise? The House will be in order. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have a bill at the desk. What's the bill number?
For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the bill, H.R. 5743.
Without objection. Pursuant to House Resolution 667 and Rule 18, the Chair declares the House in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the consideration of H.R. 5743. The Chair appoints the gentleman from Kansas, Mr. Yoder, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
The House is in the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union for the consideration of H.R. 5743, which the clerk will report by title.
A bill to authorize appropriations for fiscal year 2013 for intelligence and intelligence-related activities of the United States government, the Community Management Account, and the Central Intelligence Agency Retirement and Disability System, and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the bill is considered read the first time. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Rogers, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Rupersberger, each will control 30 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would yield as much time as I might consume.
The gentleman will suspend. Committee will be in order. Gentleman from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I first wish to make an announcement with respect to the availability of the classified annex to the bill for the members of the House. This is to reinforce a previous announcement made to members by the Committee on Rules on May 23, 2012, and an informal announcement by leadership. Mr. Chairman, the classified schedule of authorizations and the classified annex accompanying the bill remain available for review by members at the offices of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence in room HVC 304 of the Capitol Visitors Center. The committee office will open during regular business hours for the convenience of any member who wishes to review this material prior to the consideration of the House. I recommend that members wishing to review the classified annex contact the committee's Director of Security to arrange a time and date for that viewing. This will assure the availability of committee staff to assist members who desire assistance during the review of these classified documents. Mr. Chairman, I have to tell you we're especially pleased with this year's fiscal 2013 Intelligence Authorization Bill and its presence here on the floor today. This will be our third authorization since I assumed the chairmanship and my colleague, Mr. Ruppersberger, assumed the ranking member position on the House Intelligence Committee. The bill is a vital tool for congressional oversight of the intelligence community's classified activities and is critical to ensuring that our intelligence agencies have the resources and authorities they need to do their important work. The Intelligence Authorization Bill funds U.S. intelligence activities spanning 17 separate agencies. This bill is significantly below last year's enacted budget, but up modestly from the President's roughly $72 billion on the unclassified number budget request for fiscal year 2013. It is also completely in line with the House Budget Resolution, which provides a modest increase for defense activities above the President's budget. The FY13 bill sustains our current intelligence capabilities and provides for the development of future capabilities, all while achieving significant savings and ensuring the intelligence agencies are being good stewards of the taxpayer's dollar. The U.S. intelligence community plays a critical role on the war on terrorism and securing the country from many threats that we face. Effective and aggressive congressional oversight is essential to ensuring continued success in the intelligence community. Current challenging fiscal environment demands the accountability and financial oversight of our classified intelligence programs that can only come with an intelligence authorization bill. The bill's comprehensive classified annex provides detailed guidance on intelligence spending, including adjustments to costly but important programs. The bill funds requirements of the men and women of the intelligence community, both military and civilian, many of whom directly support the war zones and are engaged in other dangerous operations designed to keep America safe. It provides oversight and authorization for vital intelligence activities, including global counterterrorism operations, such as the one that took out Osama bin Laden, efforts by the National Security Agency to defend us from advanced foreign state-sponsored cyber threats, countering the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, global monitoring of foreign militaries and advanced weapons tests, research and development of new technology to maintain our intelligence agencies' technological edge, including work on code-breaking and spy satellites. To stay competitive amidst the declining budgets, the IC must wring out cost in all realms of operations: collection, processing, analysis, logistics, and back-office operations. This bill promotes operating efficiencies in a number of areas, particularly in information technology, the ground processing of satellite data, and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance compartments. The bill holds personnel levels, one of the biggest cost drivers, at last year's level. Even so, the bill adds a limited number of new personnel positions for select, high-priority positions, such as the FBI surveillance officers, to keep watch on terrorists. The bill contains additional funding for intelligence collection programs, including increased counterintelligence to thwart foreign spies. The bill also increases funding for our intelligence community's comparative advantage, cutting-edge research and development. While we're on the subject of funding our intelligence agencies, I think I would be remiss if we didn't briefly discuss the looming threat of sequestration and the devastating consequences it would have on our vital intelligence operations. The intelligence community and the Congressional Intelligence Oversight Committees have worked together over the last year in recognition of the current challenging fiscal environment to find deficiencies in the intelligence budget, and we've done that. And we've actually done more in certain areas by finding efficiencies in other areas and reducing the overall cost of our 17 agencies. Unlike the dangerous across-the-board cuts of the 1990s, however, these funding cuts were carefully selected to ensure that no important operational intelligence capabilities were impacted. Let me be clear. The intelligence community has given till it hurts to produce better budget efficiencies, but we have done this without adversely affecting the mission, which is critically important. All of this careful work, however, will have been done for nothing if Congress doesn't avert the sequestration train wreck that is fast coming down the tracks. Sequestration will require a devastating cut to defense spending that will also entail dangerous across-the-board reductions in intelligence funding. The across-the-board nature of the sequester means that there is very little discretion left for our intelligence agencies on how to apportion these reductions. Let me give you just a few examples of the dangerous impact that this would have. Thousands of intelligence officers and specialized technicians will be laid off, to include those working around the world and around the clock to stop terrorist plots before they arrive on U.S. shore. The National Security Agency would have to significantly reduce its ability to intercept, translate, and analyze terrorist communications about their plans to attack the United States and Western targets. This would significantly reduce our odds of detecting and disrupting those terrorist plots. Intelligence community support to our soldiers and Marines in harm's way in Afghanistan would significantly be curtailed. The National Geospatial Agency would be forced to cut back the number of satellite images that it analyzes, reducing our odds of detecting significant foreign military activity, such as North Korea preparations for an attack on our troops in South Korea. Our intelligence agencies and the important work they do is our first line of defense against many of the threats around the world that pose to our national security. Sequestration would be a dangerous and irresponsible for many reasons, not the least of which is the threat to those vital intelligence capabilities, and Congress must act to avoid it. The House has put an offer on the table that would avert this disaster. We passed a bill earlier this month with responsible spending reforms that would bring down the debt without endangering our national security. I urge my colleagues in the Senate to take up this bill without further delay. The bipartisan Fiscal Year 13 Intelligence Authorization Bill preserves and advances national security and is also fiscally responsible. We have proven it can be done. The secrecy that is a necessary part of our country's intelligence work requires that the Congressional Intelligence Committees conduct strong and effective oversight on behalf of the American people. That strong and effective oversight is impossible, however, without an annual intelligence authorization bill, and I want to thank my colleague for from all of the members on the committee for their bipartisan effort to find agreement on a bill that saves money and moves forward smartly on protecting the interests of national security for the United States, and I would reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Michigan reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
So, Mr. Chairman, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise today in support of the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013. It is a bipartisan bill that gives our intelligence professionals the resources, capabilities, and authorities they need to keep our country safe. When Chairman Rogers and I took over the leadership of the Intelligence Committee, we made a commitment to bipartisanship. We believe politics has no place on the Intelligence Committee. The stakes are just too high. We also made a commitment to passing intelligence budgets to give the intelligence community financial direction and to conduct proper oversight. I commend Chairman Rogers for making this an open process where we reached agreement on issues that will make this country safer and the intelligence process more efficient. But we also know we're facing tough economic times, so we must use every dollar wisely. This budget is about 4% below the enacted levels for FY 2012. It holds personnel at last year's levels and authorizes an initiative to achieve major efficiencies and improve performance, and information technology. We made cuts where appropriate, eliminated redundancies, and pushed programs to come in on time and on budget. The bill allocates resources to critical national security priorities: 1, space; 2, cybersecurity; 3, counterintelligence; and 4, counterterrorism. We restored some of the cuts to commercial satellite imagery to ensure the warfighter and policymakers have the images they need. I believe commercial competition is important to ensure the warfighter and other policymakers get high-quality products while keeping costs down. It drives innovation and provides a much-needed insurance policy in case there are problems with other government programs. The bill reinforces cybersecurity by protecting the intelligence community's networks from countries like China and others trying to steal our valuable data. The bill also makes counterintelligence a priority by increasing surveillance of foreign spies from countries like China, Russia, and Iran. The bill improves supply chain security and adds the counterintelligence analysts this nation needs. The bill enhances counterterrorism efforts to continue the fight against al-Qaeda and its affiliates around the world. The bill increases oversight on the spending of domestic intelligence agencies. The bill also expands the intelligence community's capabilities around the globe to ensure the United States is capable and ready to address the threats worldwide. The bill authorizes the Defense Clandestine Service, created by the Department of Defense, to reorganize its human intelligence collection and partnership with the CIA's National Clandestine Service. The Democrats on the House Intelligence Committee remain committed to giving our intelligence professionals what they need to do their jobs while also providing proper oversight and protecting personal privacy. Provisions offered by the minority members were accepted as part of the chairman's mark, and other amendments were adopted unanimously by the committee. Congressman Schakowsky introduced an amendment that protects the Inspector General of an intelligence agency from across-the-board cuts to preserve their role as a watchdog of an organization. I commend Ms. Schakowsky for her good work on this bill. Congressman Thompson introduced an amendment that would expand our efforts to prevent drug cultivation on federal lands. And I commend Mr. Thompson for his efforts on this bill as well. In fact, we wouldn't be here today without the hard work of all the members of the Intelligence Committee. This is truly a bipartisan product. The bill passed through markup by a margin of 19-0, a true testament to the bipartisan spirit of the committee. I urge my colleagues to support the Intelligence Authorization Act for 2013. This bill ensures the nation's intelligence community is effective and fiscally sound and subject to appropriate oversight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I would yield 2 minutes to the distinguished member of the committee, Mr. Nunez.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today is another milestone in our work to conduct strong oversight of the intelligence community. In just under 2 years as chairman and ranking member, the gentleman from Michigan and the gentleman from Maryland have proven that the Intelligence Committee is now really not just a bipartisan committee, but I think more importantly a nonpartisan committee, which is why this bill passed out of committee 19-0. During these austere times, it is also important not only to sustain our nation's intelligence capabilities and provide for future needs, but to do so in a fiscally responsible way. This bill achieves significant savings by holding the line on authorized spending below last year's levels, curbs unnecessary personal growth, and targets intelligence investments. Included in this bill are the tools necessary to reduce operational costs of the intelligent community's frontline operators and provisions to conduct a house cleaning of back-office operations. Moreover, this bill ensures that acquisitions are done on cost and on schedule while still expanding the IC community's comparative advantage of cost-cutting and cutting-edge research and technology. One of the critical gaps this bill fixes is with structural deficiencies in the CIA Inspector General's office. We are taking steps to allow the CIA to better recruit and retain a professional staff of investigators. This is done by allowing the IG to designate certain positions as law enforcement officers for retirement purposes. Mr. Chairman, it is critical that the Congress demand accountability and financial oversight of our classified intelligence programs. That can only be done through consistent passage of an intelligence authorization bill. I urge all members to support the bill before us today, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from California yields back. The gentleman from Michigan reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I yield 4 minutes to my distinguished colleague from the state of California, Mr. Thompson.
The gentleman from California is
I thank the
recognized for 4
gentleman
minutes.
for yielding. And I also thank the chairman and the ranking member for making sure that we're able to work together to produce a document that will benefit the entire country in regard to our national security. And I rise in strong support of this year's intelligence authorization bill. As the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Terrorism, Human Intelligence Analysis and Counterintelligence, I'm pleased that we're able to put this product forward, and I strongly support the bill's emphasis on developing stronger counterintelligence capabilities throughout the intelligence community. Every time I travel overseas to observe operating conditions, I've been impressed by the work being done by our intelligence personnel, but also concerned about the increasing threats and challenges that we face. Today, our intelligence officers are facing increasingly hostile foreign intelligence services, insurgent groups, terrorist organizations, industrial spies, and the threat of cyber attacks. Many of our adversaries are working together in ways we haven't seen before. This is no longer the Cold War world with little cameras and secret compartments. It's now more complicated to find out how our enemies are getting intelligence on the United States and how these same enemies are protecting their own secrets. To address this threat, this bill provides additional resources to enable our intelligence community to collect better information and provide better analysis on how our adversaries are working against us. Second, since the emergence of the Arab Spring, our subcommittee has been examining how the intelligence community has been identifying the types of trends that have literally transformed countries overnight, countries like Tunisia and Egypt. I've heard firsthand from our intelligence personnel that they need more to better get a handle on the dynamics in their countries and their regions. The Arab Spring phenomenon can happen anywhere, anytime, and our intelligence community must be better prepared the next time. This bill enables the intelligence community to rebuild its global mission by realigning and adding to its current resources dedicated to this collection effort. With these resources, intelligence personnel will have more tools to identify and report signs of instability in real time. This bill also includes a number of other provisions that I believe are important to our national security. The bill requires the Director of National Intelligence to continue compiling threat assessment of foreign drug traffickers that are turning our public lands in the United States into hostile areas to further their operations. This threat assessment was first required in last year's authorization, and given the scope of the problem, it's essential that our efforts to combat foreign drug traffickers on our federal property be continued. Also, the bill restores funding for the National Gang Intelligence Center. The analysis that the NGIC has provided on the growing gang influence in the U.S. military, for example, is critical to finding an adequate solution to this problem. And the very reason Congress created the NGIC in the first place. It's important that this work continue. I am a little disappointed that we weren't able to do some things that we all believe are necessary. For example, the expansion of the science, technology, engineering, and math cooperative programs at colleges and universities is extremely important, and I think we need to continue to do more to make sure that we're able to grow that resource. But, Mr. Speaker, our intelligence community must be prepared for any and all threats. While Osama bin Laden may no longer pose a direct threat to our country's safety and security, the remaining elements of al-Qaeda and other emerging terrorist organizations are more determined than ever. It's critical for Congress to pass this bill, and I strongly support that we do so today.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would yield about 2.5 minutes to the gentleman from Kansas.
The gentleman from Kansas is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for yielding to me, Mr. Chairman. I want to first start by commending Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Rippersberger for their great work on crafting this bipartisan bill, this strong piece of legislation that addresses some tremendously important issues that face our country. And while this legislation in its detail, and we've heard the Chairman speak about it, talks about new initiatives and programs and three-letter agencies. This is about something different from that. This is about protecting the American people. This is about keeping the citizens of El Dorado and Coffeyville and Wichita and Anthony, Kansas safe against a staggeringly large and very, very real threat. On September 11th, now over a decade ago, we began to enter a very different time, a very different war. Now 15 years ago, I was serving in the military. I served along the East German border, and then it was different. We could see the enemy. They wore uniforms. There were fences and boundaries. And today we live in a very, very different world. And this legislation, the 2013 Intelligence Bill, attempts to, in a fiscally responsible way, while protecting the privacy of every American citizen in a conscientious way, address those very real threats. You know, it is easy sometimes to forget from a decade ago and forget that al-Qaeda is still there, active and trying, fighting vigorously to take down the American way of life. And to see this thoughtful piece of legislation put together in a way that both parties could agree to, that both parties could say, this makes sense, these are the resources we have available, we're going to do this in a fiscally prudent way, is something that I think should encourage each of us and cause every member to support this legislation. You know, we can't allow anyone to forget that this threat is real. The gravity and consequences of not having an active, capable intelligence set of agencies and forces is too important. I know the Chairman and Ranking Member both understand this. I want to thank them for their work, and I want to encourage each and every one of my colleagues to support the FY 2013 Intelligence Authorization Bill. With that, I yield back my time.
The gentleman from Kansas yields back. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to my distinguished colleague from the state of Rhode Island, Jim Langevin, who I consider one of the foremost experts in the area of cyber security. Thank you for your work in that field, Mr. Langevin. 2 minutes.
The gentleman from Rhode Island is recognized for 2 minutes. Without objection.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I thank both Chairman Rogers and Ranking Member Ruppersberger for their outstanding work on this very important legislation and so many aspects contained in it. Last September, I proudly spoke in support of the fiscal year 2012 Intelligence Authorization Bill because it addressed cybersecurity needs as well as many issues of great importance, not just to me, but to our country and to the men and women of our intelligence services. I was pleased to be a part of a bipartisan effort within the Intelligence Committee to craft that legislation and gratified by the overwhelming bipartisan support that it garnered. Earlier this year, the House considered the Cyber Intelligence Sharing and Protection Act, which also received bipartisan support, and in my opinion is a critical first step to confront the serious challenges our nation faces in the realm of cybersecurity. Now, I continue to advocate for action on CISPA and on the comprehensive cybersecurity legislation that will ultimately be necessary to address this issue. But today I'm proud to support H.R. 5743, the fiscal year 2013 Intelligence Authorization Bill, because it builds on these earlier efforts to give the U.S. intelligence community the tools and funding it needs to meet the challenges of the future. Just as importantly, it supports the men and women of the intelligence community who support those investments and keep our nation secure. The National Counterintelligence Executive recently warned that China and Russia are conducting sophisticated cyber espionage against the U.S., in addition to more traditional espionage operations. They and other countries seek to undermine our military, technological, and innovative edge by exploiting our vulnerabilities in the cyber realm, and in particular, our critical infrastructure. This situation presents a pervasive threat to U.S. economic security, and I'm very sad to say that they're having success. The estimates on the losses to U.S. industry and government from economic espionage range from $2 billion to over $400 billion a year. Now, this massive spread only emphasizes that we don't yet have the information we need to fully understand and combat this threat. The National Counterintelligence Executive cautions that the intelligence community can't entirely prevent cyber theft of national and industrial. Thank you. The National Counterintelligence Executive cautions that the intelligence community can't entirely prevent cyber theft of national and industrial secrets, but the community can minimize the hostile activity and mitigate the effects. And those efforts will be more successful if the agencies collaborate, build public-private partnerships, and improve intelligence collection and analysis of the cyber threat to our country. The FY 2013 bill responds by giving the intelligence agencies the resources they need to develop a strong, unified effort to counter China, Russia, and other actors that might threaten our economic security or technological edge. The bill also does a lot to protect our supply chain, which is another area of vulnerability. This is a good bill, it's an important bill, and I urge my colleagues to support it.
Thank you.
I yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I'll reserve my time.
The gentleman from Michigan reserves. The gentleman from Maryland.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to my distinguished colleague from the state of California, Adam Schiff.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding, and I want to rise to congratulate our chairman, Mr. Rogers, and our ranking member, Mr. Ruppersberger, for their extraordinary work in putting this bill together and the incredible and bipartisan operation of the committee. This work product and the committee operations, I think, are a model that many of the rest of the committees on the Hill would do well to follow. I rise in strong support of H.R. 5743, an authorization bill that gives our intelligence community the tools they need to keep America safe. And I'd like to focus on the technical aspects of the bill, specifically the intelligence community's future investments in key overhead technologies. This is a good bill and makes necessary budget cuts without affecting the mission of the intelligence community. And there's one issue in particular I would like to highlight. Since 9/11, we have been investigating the potential advantages of persistent video. Current systems that simply snap pictures miss critical dynamics of the adversary. Standard pictures, limited to capturing isolated points in time, can't tell where a bad actor came from or where they went after they committed an act of terror. Hypothetically, consider what if we could use a video and video a hostile area 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and during this period a roadside bomb occurred. With a variety of capabilities, we could simply rewind and watch the perpetrators as they planted the device and trace their locations both before and after the device exploded. Independent of the source, whether space, ground, or air, we simply can't do that with still photography. Similarly, such a capacity might help us identify proliferators of nuclear and missile technology. I favor an approach that invests in new technologies that go beyond our past and present capabilities. In my role as ranking member for the Technical and Tactical Subcommittee, I'll work to ensure that cost, schedule, and performance are met as we strive to explore this potential advantage for national security. Mr. Chairman, ranking member, again, I want to thank you for the opportunity to express my views on this bill. I support it wholeheartedly and recommend its passage, and I yield back.
Yields back. Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Chairman, I continue to reserve time.
Gentleman from Michigan continues to reserve. The gentleman from Maryland.
Mr. Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to my distinguished colleague from the state of Kentucky, Ben Chandler.
Gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to start by saying just how wonderful it is to be a part of a committee that actually works well together. And I thank the chairman, Chairman Rogers, and Ranking Member Ruppersberger for that. In this place these days, it seems a bit unusual, but on this committee, in my view, there are not Republicans and Democrats. There are patriots and Americans, and I appreciate that. I'm proud to support this bill, the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013. This bill authorizes vital funding for our intelligence activities, which we need to protect America and American interests. Congress has an obligation to support intelligence gathering while also protecting our civil liberties and considering our fiscal responsibilities. And I believe this bill does just that, ensuring that we have resources and tools needed to keep our country safe, even in this tough economic time. We live in complicated times when terrorists can execute a cyber attack from halfway around the world, bringing down a nation's infrastructure or compromising individuals' identities and bank accounts. Now, more than ever before, our intelligence capabilities are critical to the safety and security of our country. In my tenure on the Intelligence Committee, I've had the privilege of working with the fine men and women of the intelligence community. And I'm here to tell you they are committed patriots who protect our nation and our way of life every day. I cannot overstate how important the work they do is to the safety of our nation. This bill, which passed out of the committee with overwhelming bipartisan support, allocates resources to critical national programs, including those that detect, prevent, and disrupt terrorist attacks against Americans. It enhances counterterrorism efforts to continue the fight against al-Qaeda and its affiliates around the world. Furthermore, this bill shows the committee's commitment to giving our intelligence professionals what they need to do their jobs while providing oversight and protecting personal privacy. The world just saw how first-rate our intelligence community is after the successful mission to kill Osama bin Laden last year. This legislation ensures that we can continue to have the world's premier intelligence capabilities. And again, I thank the chairman and I thank the ranking member for the tremendous way that they caused the committee to work together. It's an honor to serve on this committee, and I thank you. Yield back.
The gentleman from Kentucky yields back. The gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Chairman, I continue to reserve.
The gentleman from Michigan continues to reserve. The gentleman from Maryland.
Can I ask how much time each side has?
The gentleman from Maryland has 15 minutes remaining. The gentleman from Michigan has 18 minutes remaining.
Mr. Chairman, I reserve also at this time.
Gentleman from Maryland reserves. Gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Chairman, I have one more speaker who is on his way to the floor, I understand. So continue to reserve my time.
Mr. Chairman, I yield myself so much time as I may consume. I'm proud that this bill under consideration counterintelligence resources. Last year, the chairman and I made it a priority to review the community's counterintelligence posture after learning more about the aggressive ways foreign intelligence and security services continue to steal U.S. secrets, including trade secrets from U.S. companies. One of the most disturbing reports came from the National Counterintelligence Executive, which said that Russia and China are both aggressively utilizing cyberspace to steal U.S. economic secrets. This informative unclassified report is available on the Director of National Intelligence website. I encourage every U.S. business to read it to understand the threats they face today. The hard work and money it takes to innovate and conduct research are all at risk. What China, Russia, and any other country who engage in espionage realize is that it's faster and cheaper to steal U.S. creativity than to develop it themselves. The report also gives examples of the millions of dollars that are at stake, like a single proprietary paint formula from Valspar valued at $20 million. These are some economic impacts of espionage, but they are also the cost to our national security and those of our allies. A spy within our intelligence community with access to our most sensitive secrets can mean the lives of our sources and our troops. In these cases, it is impossible to calculate the impact. Espionage is countered by the vigilance of our counterintelligence professionals. These are the people we depend upon to discover the spies within our midst. I'm proud that this bill adds the resources and personnel to this critical mission. I reserve.
Gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Michigan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would yield 3 minutes to the gentleman from Nevada.
The gentleman from Nevada is recognized for 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise today in support of H.R. 5743, the fiscal year 2013 intelligence authorization. This bill strikes the appropriate balance between the necessity for fiscal restraint and providing our intelligence community the resources they need so that they can continue to play a vital role in our national security. This is especially true in the technical collection systems that are the focus of the Subcommittee on Technical and Tactical Intelligence. H.R. 5743 puts the focus on how well our entire technical collection architecture systems work together. In the past, we have had a tendency to focus on a few large acquisition programs and not on the total capability that all systems bring to the nation. This bill leverages advancements in technology by making changes that are focused on ensuring collection platforms work together to simultaneously collect and correlate data. Additionally, through funding for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency programs, this bill incrementally advances the ability to coordinate collection across a diverse set of collection platforms that are fielded by the intelligence and military communities. H.R. 5743 also takes an important first step toward reducing the cost of launch and encourages the further development of commercial launch services. While the cost of getting to space has not traditionally been the focus of the intelligence community, these essential reforms will allow us to reallocate these savings to our nation's core intelligence missions. Mr. Chairman, again, I urge support of H.R. 5743. I thank the Chairman and the Ranking Member for their leadership on this issue and yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
I have no further speakers, and I believe we're ready to close. Sir. Mr. Chairman, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
For the third time in 3 years, Chairman Rogers and I have stood on the floor of the House encouraging our colleagues to support our intelligence budget bill. We both rise in support of the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2013. I would like to thank Chairman Rogers for his bipartisan leadership on this bill. The bill gives our intelligence professionals the resources, capabilities, and authorities they need to protect American and American interests. We crafted a bill that addresses our core needs, including space, cybersecurity, counterintelligence, and counterterrorism, while also keeping an eye on the bottom line. This bill is about 4% below last year's budget and holds personnel at last year's levels. The Intelligence Committee came together as Democrats and Republicans to do what is right for our country and for the intelligence community. The bill unanimously passed out of our committee by a margin of 19-0. I would also like to thank the staff of the Intelligence Committee for their hard work on this bill. You're only as good as your team and your staff. I urge my colleagues to support the Intelligence Authorization Act for FY 2013. Mr. Speaker, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Maryland yields back time. The gentleman from Michigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield myself as much time as I might consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I, too, want to thank the Ranking Member for his bipartisan leadership on this very, very important issue, our national security, and the staffs of both committees. We did something very unusual. We have the staffs work together to produce an authorization bill, and we think it makes a much better product with a lot more voices in the mix. We think we have gotten to a place that will protect America and save money for the taxpayers. That's a good place to be. And at the end of the day, this is about a very serious issue. It's about the fact that we have folks all around the world who are getting up in the morning trying to commit acts of violence against U.S. citizens or our allies. It's about nation-states who want to steal the very prosperity of America by stealing our intellectual property through spying or cyber spying. It's about nation-states who are making an investment in cyber attack capability that would actually cause catastrophic harm to the United States economy. It is about nation-states who are engaged in the development of nuclear weapons for certainly no good purpose. You know, in the 90s we had a peace dividend because the structure of the threat changed fundamentally, and we could rearrange the way we looked at the world and our defense posture and our national security posture around the world. And I think this is a good moment to caution where we go in the future. This is not like the 90s. We don't enjoy the same peace dividend in the sense that the world is more complicated and in many ways more dangerous than it has ever been before. Those intelligence services are getting aggressive. Our adversaries are getting better. They are investing in space and cyber in a way that is breathtaking if we don't keep pace. We don't have to spend dollar for dollar, but we do have to match intellectual capital with the solutions that we need to keep America safe. The men and women, the very brave men and women who risk their lives all over the globe to protect our soldiers by providing them state-of-the-art and up-to-date information, or recruiting somebody in a very dangerous place somewhere else that might give us that little bit of advantage in knowing what our adversaries are up to. We owe a great debt of gratitude to those very brave Americans who do risk their lives every single day in defense of this nation. They are silent and quiet warriors, but deserve no less of our appreciation and gratitude for faithful service to this great nation. This bill reflects that. And it reflects the important status that we are going to have to take in the intelligence community when it comes to protecting America in what is promising to be a dangerous future when it comes to our adversaries. This bill, we think, takes head-on those new challenges so that America can be equally prosperous in the future and as safe as we have ever been. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I would yield back the remainder of my time.
The gentleman from Michigan yields back. All time for general debate has expired. Pursuant to the rule, the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence printed in the bill shall be considered as an original bill for the purpose of amendment under the 5-minute rule and shall be considered read. No amendment to the committee amendment in the nature of a substitute shall be in order except those printed in House Report 112-504. Each amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report by a member designated in the report, shall be considered read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by a proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to amendment, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question. It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 1, printed in House Report 112-504. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk made in order under the rule, Amendment Number 1 of 27.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment Number 1, printed in House Report Number 112-504, offered by Mr. Rogers of Michigan.
Pursuant to House Resolution 667, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Rogers, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Chairman, I would yield myself as much time as I might consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman, this is a manager's amendment to the bill, and very simply, and I don't want to waste a lot of time on it, it would simply strike 2 technical provisions to allow us to resolve any potential issues going forward. There were 2 technical issues that was deemed by the parliamentarian as an appropriation language. We just wanted to take that language out to make sure that there were no issues. It doesn't change the nature of the bill in any way, and it has bipartisan support and would urge the body's support of the Rogers amendment.
Gentleman yield back. The gentleman yields back. Purpose of the gentleman from Maryland seek recognition.
Yes, I rise in opposition to the amendment, but I do support the amendment.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Michigan. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. It is now in order to consider Amendment Number 2, printed in House Report 112-504. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment Number 2, printed in House Report Number 112-504, offered by Mr. Thompson of California.
Pursuant to House Resolution 667, the gentleman from California, Mr. Thompson, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman's recognized.
My amendment will help small businesses who have the proper security clearances better navigate the intelligence community's contracting process and will ensure that they get a fair shot at business opportunities should these companies have the technical expertise and capabilities needed. This change will be good for small businesses and will strengthen our national security. Second and third tier contractors produce highly specialized technology for the intelligence community, but work directly for larger companies. These small businesses have extraordinary talent and expertise, but often find themselves excluded from many business opportunities with the larger intelligence community because, for example, they lack access to the classified databases where these opportunities are presented. Sometimes that access is as simple as a computer connection for cleared experts to review contracting opportunities. By limiting small businesses that have the appropriate security clearances from these contracting opportunities, we all lose. The intelligence community loses access to the best technical solutions by limiting who is able to fulfill or even bid for those contracts. Small businesses lose the opportunity to display their expertise and to expand their companies. And as important, the taxpayer loses by virtue of a lack of market competition and is given no assurance that the government is getting the best price for their classified contract requirements. My amendment addresses this problem by requiring an assessment of the IC's current contracting practices and a review of these practices to determine if they present unfair barriers to competition for small businesses. In particular, my amendment requires the Director of National Intelligence to report to Congress how the intelligence community is currently working with second and third tier contractors and to identify any problems that may reduce the overall effectiveness of this contracting process. In this report, the DNI will be required to offer recommendations to improve methods by which second- and third-tier contractors are granted security clearance and notified of classified contracting opportunities. Mr. Speaker, second- and third-tier contractors that support the technical efforts of the intelligence community are an underutilized asset. These same second- and third-tier contractors are also small businesses that many of our communities depend upon for jobs and for the economy in their local areas. My amendment ensures that the intelligence community is getting access to the best available technology while ensuring that small businesses around the country have a fair shot at expanding their companies. I urge my colleagues to support this amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from California reserves. For what purpose the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, while I do not oppose the amendment, I ask unanimous consent to control the time in opposition.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I would yield my time, myself as much time as I might consume. I want to thank Mr. Thompson for working with us not only on the overall bill, but any amendment that might strengthen the process. I'm committed to continue to work with Mr. Thompson on these very issues and would support the amendment and yield back my time.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California.
Yield back.
Gentleman from California yields back. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from California. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to.
Mr. Chairman.
It is now in order to consider amendment number 3, printed in House Report 112-504. For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 3, printed in House Report number 112-504, offered by Mr. Conyers of Michigan.
Pursuant to House Resolution 667, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Conyers, and a member opposed, each will control 5 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
I thank the chairman, and I give myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman's recognized.
Mr. Chairman and members, I rise in support of this amendment with my colleagues, Mr. Ellison of Minnesota and Ms. Lee of California. And our amendment would require the Director of National Intelligence to submit a report to the Congressional Intelligence Committees within 60 days containing an analysis of the potential consequences of a military strike against Iran. In recent months, the possibility of a preemptive military strike against Iran has been openly discussed as a policy option of last resort as our country and our allies determine how best to confront the challenge posed by Iran's nuclear program. At the same time, the national discussion has prompted a larger number of current and former military and intelligence officials to come forward to encourage the Congress and the administration to consider the possible consequences, both intended and others that may be unintended, of such a strike. These high-level officials include former United States and Israeli national security officials, including a former Bush administration National Intelligence Council chairman, a former National Intelligence Officer for the Near East and South Asia, General Colin Powell's former Chief of Staff, 5 retired generals, the former director of the Israeli Mossad, and a former Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Forces. All of these experts have raised concerns that an attack on Iran could possibly result in serious harm to the global economy and potentially ignite a regional war and even push Iran to building a nuclear weapon. With consequences as serious as these being raised by outside and former national security experts, it's critical that the expertise and collective wisdom of our intelligence community be added to this debate so that our country's policy options involving war and peace can be rigorously examined by this body. And for these reasons, I encourage my colleagues to support our amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Conyers, reserves. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Rogers, is recognized.
Mr. Chairman, while I do not oppose the amendment, I'm going to ask